Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Cup of Coffee, the show to go with your morning cup of coffee. I am Amaan, and this is my co-host, Umar.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
So, Umar, what have you been thinking about this week?
Well, I've been thinking about creativity once again, as I always tend to, and I was just thinking about how, oftentimes our creative passions can become kind of stale.
Yeah.
It can, like, be it drawing or painting or writing. Oftentimes, uh, you do it for a long time and you just don't want to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And just you don't get that sense of fulfillment uh, and just that satisfaction that you once did. It starts to feel like well, eventually it can start to feel like you're sort of going through the motions. You're just doing it for
Yeah.
for the sake of saying that you're doing it rather
Yeah.
than doing it for yourself. So what's up? So the question I've had is just how do you stop that creative passion from becoming stale like that?
Hmm. That's an interesting question, actually, because I feel like I've gone through that several times with a lot of different things, whether it be, and so there's creative passion and then there's normal passion where that happens, and so say you start to enjoy something that you're doing that's good for you, like working out, that's something that you're just generally passionate about. And then there's creative passion where, like you mentioned, writing and drawing. So I guess I'll start off by talking about creative passion and then kind of relate it to, general things that we do with our lives that are good for us and that we enjoy and lose passion about slowly. So in terms of creativity, I think that for me it's happened quite a bit where I lost my passion, and for weeks or months I just couldn't. It was when I was developing the video game, and when I was I don't mean to plug my other YouTube channel, but when I was doing this 20-hour project, and I was basically for 20 hours, I was learning how to draw. And because 20 hours is apparently the magic number to get pretty good at something. And so I spent 20 hours on learning how to draw, and I ended up getting pretty decent at it. But in the middle, I didn't do anything for like a month because I just got so sick of it and so tired. Um, but how I pushed myself to get back was I like I would have that drawing there every day on my desk, and so I didn't give up on that goal essentially, and I feel like it's inevitable when you don't give up on your goal that you'll come back to it, as long as you wake up every day and you say, you know what, today I'll do it. It's always on your to-do list. It's always there, right? And if you feel like you don't have time for it, then one tip I've heard that's excellent is you can put it on your to-do list in a section called someday/maybe, right? So that way it's there and you don't forget about it. And eventually, whenever you're ready, and you should constantly be trying to get yourself ready to get back into it, to because when you're in the zone, when you love doing it feels great. So that's kind of how you get yourself back into that creative passion. Just keep it there, keep it as a big part of your life, so that way it doesn't feel like a drag that you eventually have to get back to. It begins to feel like, this is something that I love to do, and I know I want to do it. I just don't feel like it right now, but when I do, I'll definitely do it.
Yeah,
So
I think
that's mhm.
yeah, I
What
think
do you think?
part of that preparation process is what's really important. Just trying to get yourself back into that mindset, and I think what something that really helps is going back to the beginning,
Hmm.
just going back to what inspired you to start that creative passion to begin with.
Yeah.
Um, because like um, because like different things inspire creative passion. Like for for video for the video game you're developing, obviously there are some video games that inspired your philosophy and
Hmm.
your game design, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine going back to those games would have helped you a lot to try and get out of that creative rut.
Yeah. I think, yeah, it obviously depends on the type of creativity because, I can't like play yeah, I would actually disagree a little bit there because Well, I guess game design is a bit more complicated
I
because I
guess.
can't
Yeah.
go back and like if I go back and play that game, yeah, I'd be more excited about game design, but I wouldn't be more excited about programming because
Yeah.
like if I'm stuck on a coding thing, then it would just make me feel worse. Like man,
Yeah.
I'd rather play video games now than do it.
I guess for different ones for stuff like I guess for writing it works best
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
um like pretty much I think my passion for writing probably stems to some degree from Pokemon.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
actually, like I can
I see
pretty
that.
much trace all my creative and creative interests and hobbies to Pokemon in some way.
Yeah, that
uh,
that sounds very
mm,
ish.
yeah, just because I like anime, I like comic books, and those are some of the biggest influences to my writing.
Hmm.
Um, like I because I like a lot of the themes and the idea of like strong, really motivated protagonists.
Yeah.
Uh, so so something I'll often do when I'm in creative rut is just so there's this website called Pokemon Showdown.
Mm.
Uh, so basically, what you can do is you can do like Pokemon battles on it, right? So something I'll do is I'll just make a random, just there's this thing where you can just generate a random team, just go off the battle, and I'll just do that for like half an hour to an hour.
Hmm. Wow, and that helps you like feel more creative just because of the inspiration from the game.
Uh, it sort of brings me back to that like place where it all began.
Oh,
Um, so you just so for me, it just sort of brings or sort of reminds me of why I started everything in the first place and just gives me that motivation to keep going.
that's really cool. Actually, that's an interesting concept. I've been given that advice before when I asked someone like how do you um, if you're stuck somewhere, kind of like a rut, a creative rut. I asked like if you're stuck somewhere and you don't know how to keep going, then he was like, just look at the people that have done it before you, right? So inspiration, I guess, in a different format. He was saying the people that have done it before you that you look up to in that field, or whatever you're doing, and look at them and how they were able to do it. I never personally did that and used that to get through. I guess everyone's different. But I think that was interesting advice that was given to me because inspiration is often something um, that you lose. You lose motivation, and sometimes you need to be inspired. You need to be told that hey, you can do it, and so sometimes that push has to come from an external source. And
Yeah, I think
because
yeah, like being creative is sort of like forging your own path
yeah,
in a way. So sometimes with that path, you don't have the motivation to continue, or you don't know which direction you want that path to go. So sometimes, so like you said, like for me, like going back to the beginning, like retracing your steps back to where you started forging that path, or like the advice you're given, you just look at the paths that other people took.
yeah, 100% agree. So one more thing. If you ever, so have you ever been in that situation where, you lost passion for something, a creative thing? And um, if so, did you get out of it? And how did get back into it and rekindle the love of what you were doing?
I mean, it was like a couple of years ago. Like as I mentioned a few times, I enjoy writing.
Hmm.
Like it helps me cope, and it's a great way of getting stuff out of my system. And it's also, my main creative outlet. On top of that, it's just something I enjoy doing. And
Yeah.
then like about, I mean, about a few months ago or so, I just didn't feel like doing anything more. Like I had a whole bunch of stuff going on in my life
Yeah.
at the time, and just writing felt like if I was gonna describe it, like writing felt like that quill that Umbridge in the sixth Harry Potter movie, the quill she gives Harry that makes him write stuff in his like own skin whenever he writes it onto the paper. It felt
Yeah.
like it felt like I was doing that. Like every time I write, I was writing with my own blood.
Dang.
Um, so it just
It's rough, man.
yeah, so it just became painful at some point, so I just had to stop.
Yeah.
And what really helped me was just like I said, going back to where I started. So I just some one guilty pleasure I have is just watching the old Pokemon anime. Like I know it's a kid's show,
Yeah.
but there's something like really charming about it that I still enjoy to this day.
Yeah.
So I did the so I did a whole bunch of that because I mean the show also has some good writing, especially in its early seasons. Like it
Hmm.
can be pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I just started working on those sources that draw my inspiration. Like I draw inspiration a lot from British comedies
Mm.
uh, in my writing,
Yeah,
like
I can
stuff like
tell. I can
yeah,
tell with the way that you write.
stuff like Blackadder and Faulty Towers, stuff like the IT Crowd. So stuff like that, I started watching those again, and just feeding into those pools that I draw my inspiration from, and just like I hadn't watched much anime in a while, so I started a few new shows.
Mm.
Uh, so I think so. Basically, it was just trying. Basically, sort of the pools that I derived all my creativity from sort of cracked, and everything was sort of spilling out. So what I was basically doing was just filling those up again.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's important to, yeah, like you said before, go back to where it all started and where your motivation came from. Um, I think that a lot of people probably go through that on a consistent basis where they just don't feel motivation for whatever reason. There may be something going on in your life, or maybe you just have to get through a mental barrier about whether or not you can do it. That was what it was for me a lot of the time, where I didn't think that I would be able to accomplish certain things. I didn't think that I was, good enough to do that. And so for me, what helped, um, I guess because it was a different case for me, because the reasoning was a bit different. I just didn't think that I could do it. I just didn't have that belief in myself, and so what helped me was finding something that gave me momentum, right? Something that would give me a just a push to keep going. Uh, Very recently, that has been the 20-hour project. And because I didn't ever think that I would be able to be good at drawing. And so doing that helped me realize that if I can do that with 20 hours, then imagine if I put all my time into something, I could be really good at it. So just, I guess another piece of advice for someone out there that, doesn't think they can keep going is maybe stop doing the exact thing that you're doing. If all that happens when you sit down to write or draw or whatever it is that you're trying to do is, it's just painful for you or you're just not able to do it, then take a step back and do something else. Whether it's something that inspires you or whether it's something that you can use to give yourself momentum and make yourself feel like, hey, maybe I am, learn a new skill, like learn how to cook or something like that. Something that you can do with your time and feel good about, to kind of give yourself momentum and realize that, hey, I can do this, because everyone can. We just have to put the effort in sometimes, and it's difficult to do when you don't have that belief in yourself.
Right. Yeah, and just to end on that, a more lighthearted note, creativity is forging your own little world in some ways, be it through writing or drawing or video game design. So on that note, if you could pop yourself into any fictional world, where would that be?
um, that's a very yeah, difficult question to answer because there's so many like good answers, a lot that feel very cliche. Um, so I think I would want to go. God, that's such a tough question. So probably like a few years ago, if you asked me, I would have said Percy Jackson, and I might still say that just because that's really dope. Just being able to go to
It's a
the
really cool world.
yeah, Pokemon also be fun. Honestly, the Marvel universe, if I could be a superhero, or Spider Verse, the Spider Verse, does that count as its own fictional entity?
Yeah, I'll allow it.
All right, Spider Verse then. I could be my own Spider Man. Why not? Then that would be awesome. What
Yeah.
would you go?
I think I would have to go for the Pokemon world. I know I'm
Yeah.
talking a lot about Pokemon, but it's just something I really do enjoy.
It would be so
Uh,
awesome.
I know because even if you're a regular average citizen, you still have the potential to be something great.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I mean, just being able to go out and like catch Pokemon and
Because like
level
anyone
them
can do it.
up.
Because like the way like the show and like the games have established, like anyone can do it. Like
Yeah,
even if I just pop into that world and I'm just me, I don't get any like special position or superpowers or anything.
yeah,
I could just hop on over to the Pokemon Center, grab myself a few Pokeballs and just run with it.
yeah. That would be so awesome, just because you get to just the adventurous aspect of it. Like in the game, it's great, but imagine in real life. I mean, like that's like Pokemon Go with real Pokemon.
Because you remember that Pokemon Go summer, it was like
It was
the most
awesome.
memorable summer ever.
Definitely the most memorable summer that I've had like ever. I think it was
It
just
it,
and
it was amazing. Like everyone felt so connected and
yeah,
every, it
there
felt
was
every,
peace. There was peace in the
like
world.
yeah, it felt like everyone was like united in some way. Like we all wanted to go out there and just catch Pokemon. Like
Yeah,
like
it's
it fell off after a little bit because we didn't get all the content we were promised at the beginning.
yeah. If they took a little less time to release new Pokemon in a new region, then it would have been
Yeah, and
awesome.
like
It
didn't
they
really have.
did eventually, and it was
Yeah,
pretty cool, but nobody was playing by then, so
I mean they have got a decent player base now, but it's not. It's nowhere near
not
what it
what it
was
used to
before.
be. Yeah, at
And
its
I feel
peak, it
like
was
if they
insane.
delayed the game and just waited to add all those, I mean we'd probably still be playing it today.
Yeah, definitely. That would have been
Because
awesome.
yeah, so I think the Pokemon Go summer is just pretty much the opposite of this summer.
Yeah, I definitely think so because everyone was out everywhere in the world at cafes and Pokestops at that point and gyms outside and meeting random people on random adventures, and now we have to be with the same people consistently over and over, and
Yeah,
because we don't have a choice because of the virus.
yeah,
But
yeah, because it was. I mean, it felt like you were going on an adventure. Like you'd see other people, and they'd be looking at
mhm.
their phones the same way you were,
You
and you
knew that somebody was
and like
playing
even
Pokemon Go.
you felt a little connection with them.
Yeah,
Like it, you both were united in the sense that you both just wanted to just have fun and catch Pokemon. And
yeah,
I feel like it's kind of the opposite with everything now. Like everyone's kind of especially with political climate getting more and more charged and stuff. Like it feels like everyone's sort of scattered and
yeah,
everyone's relations are sort of frayed, and we're stuck inside all the time because of COVID. So,
yeah.
uh, so I think, so yeah, I think the summer of Pokemon Go is just one that everyone will tell their kids in the future.
Oh yeah, yeah. I will skip 2020 and I will let them know all about the summer of 2016. uh,
It's a beautiful year. And on that
Definitely.
note, we'll be moving on to our guest segment, where we'll be
Yes. Today
introducing
we have,
Ayman.
yeah,
And
I'm in
yeah,
Arshid.
cue
Should be interesting.
cue musical intro.
Hey everyone, and welcome back with our guest. I'm in Arshid. Ayman, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Ayman. I'm a computer science student at UTD. And yeah, happy to be here with my boys.
Awesome.
Looking forward to this.
Happy to have
So,
you on.
yeah. So we've already had a photographer on the podcast, Actually, I don't know if you saw that episode, Maheen. It was pretty cool. So
Mm-hmm.
we're glad to have another photographer, but you are a little bit different in that you make videos and you have some pretty cool spec ads as well, like the one for
Oh,
the Nintendo Switch. That was really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
So
awesome. Link
yeah,
in the description.
yeah, we'll link that. We'll link your channel in the
thank you,
description so
thank
that
you,
everyone
thank
can
you.
see it. But yeah, just tell me what you love about it, how you got started, and why you enjoy doing it so much.
um, well, with getting started, a lot of that was just me and like a couple of my friends, like Fawaz and Uzair, with us wanting to, like, we just saw like all these different YouTubers growing up, like watching them growing up, like maybe like who else, like True Story ASA, you kind of watch them growing up, like different like prank channels.
Yeah.
And for a bit, we actually wanted to be like a prank YouTube channel,
Mm.
and like we just didn't have like the equipment for it, and we were like, okay, we didn't really like ever get started on it.
Yeah.
Eventually, like we did. One day we were like, you know what, like we can't really like you just keep waiting for us to get equipment. Let's just start now. So we made like a couple of challenge videos and like that kind of thing.
Uh,
But even before all of this, actually, I forgot to mention this. Like when we were like really young kids, like Fawaz had like a little camcorder and we would just record like little videos on there. My dad had like an old work phone. It was like a Trio something. Like
wow.
you could just pause and play on it. So we made like a series
That's
on
cool.
there
Yeah.
where it called like Teleportation Man, where we would like record something and then pause and then I'd leave and then he'd record again and like it'll be gone and he'd be like, oh my god, where'd he go?
Yeah.
And that's just like the kind of thing that we used to do. But the reason I actually got into photography was I took photojournalism in high school because I wanted to
Yeah.
learn how to use a camera in a proper way. And as I learned how to use a camera and as I did like assignments and that kind of thing, I eventually just like fell in love with it. And I was like, I love this. I love this feeling. I love the things that I love about photography is I love making people feel good about themselves. That's like one of my favorite things. That's why I did so many portraits for so long.
Yeah.
And that's like all I did. Like I only did portraits. Like one, because my equipment is like very like easily built to do portraits and
Yeah.
record and take photos of people, and two, because like the surprise on someone's face when they see themselves and they're like, "That's me. I look
Yeah.
that good." And I'm like, "Yeah, you look that good. That's you."
That's so
I
awesome.
love it. It's great.
That's awesome. I know that you've like you said, you started off with like portraits and stuff like that, but you've expanded your horizons to much more than that. So like, what have you gotten into, and what motivates you to like keep trying new things and moving into new areas of photography and videography?
Well, for expanding into just like different fields, I think honestly that has to do with like one of my biggest idols and like celebrities I look up to. Like I just like he's not like I started looking up to him before he was a celebrity,
Mm-hmm.
but I know I'm a
All right,
underground fan. I'm an underground fan. One of those guys. I'm like, oh yeah, I knew him before he was famous. But this Donald Glover, I've been listening to him and like watching him and stuff like that since like maybe like when what like Camp and Royalty were like out and that kind of thing.
Mm.
But like seeing him do so well in so many different fields. Like he's a music producer. He's a TV show producer. He's acted in movies and TV shows. He made his own TV show Atlanta, and like he's done voice acting, comedy, stand-up comedy, like YouTube comedy.
Yeah.
Like just every single thing. He does every single thing, and he does it so
he's a
well.
true Renaissance man.
It really is. Like every
Yeah.
single thing he does, he's just incredible at it.
Yeah.
And like that kind of thing is kind of what pushes me to find different things that I enjoy, and also on top of that, like I try to be the best that I can in whatever I try to do and whatever I try to learn.
Yeah.
I think like the reason for that is like honestly one of the big like this thing that my dad tells me often, where he's like, if you're gonna do something, then you should try to be the best at it. Like Islamically, you should be trying to put your best foot forward, and like there's no point in you trying to do something if you're not going to try to do your best at it. Like the people who would become a carpenter or something, they would try their best to be like the best at their job.
Yeah.
And there's no reason that you should just like half do it and like be like, okay, I'm going to make my living and like that's it. Like if you're going to give people a service, then you definitely need to be putting your best foot forward, and be giving them like everything that you have.
Yeah, 100% agree. That's a really interesting
Yeah.
concept.
And just on a related note, how do you and we've been talking about this earlier in the podcast as well, but like how do you keep yourself motivated and just keep yourself because like with different creative passions, you can eventually fall into a bit of a rut, a creative rut, where you just don't want to do that anymore. You just feel unmotivated and just you sort of fall out of love with your creative passion for a little bit. So if that's ever happened to you, like how do you combat that?
Um, for me, it's kind of just having multiple creative passions and like that one main one that I like really really focus on. Like there's a lot of things that I think I've tried to learn in my life. Um, like I've done for a period of my time like, in my life, I wanted to make music, and I didn't ever like really do it. But
Yeah, I
like
feel like we all did at some point.
yeah, right. Like I
We
did
all
I
wanted to be
did
that SoundCloud rapper.
yeah. Like I got on GarageBand. Like I did make a couple beats. I have a SoundCloud. Like I have stuff on there.
That's cool.
But I just never like I never showed anybody. I never like
Yeah.
I showed like my friends obviously and stuff like that. But I never like actually did anything with it. Um and like now I'm like trying to learn like guitar and piano and that kind of stuff and just
That's
like
really
little
cool.
other like side projects. And then obviously like within my own like within like photography and film, I have multiple different small projects or even like long-term projects that I'm working on as I keep going. So sometimes like I don't feel creative for like a solid like 2 weeks or something, and then out of nowhere at like 3 a.m. I'll be like, I have an amazing idea, and I'll either be too busy the next day, so I'll have to write it down and like start working on it like the next week, the next day, or right there and right then I will start working on it, and I will like film it and edit it and like be up all night, and like for me, a lot of the projects that I end up working on, I will I will sit there and work on it until it's done, and I won't like eat, I won't drink, I won't sleep. I will just sit there and I will work on it until I am 100% satisfied. And a lot of that by the end of it is just me doing small little detail adjustments to
Yeah.
to get it 100% like what I envisioned in my head.
Yeah. I feel like that's really interesting when you get in that zone and you don't want to like do anything except for what, because you're just so into it, you know. And I mean, we've talked about the zone and the flow quite a bit. So actually I want to ask you both, like, what was the time where you just felt more than like any other point in your life where you were in that zone and it felt like there was nothing else there, like time either sped up or slowed down, and there was you were just unstoppable in that moment and you were in a zone. I guess we'll start with Omar because I mean we've been asking you questions for a while, so I'll let you think a little bit. But Omar, what was the time that you felt like that?
So back in high school, I was actually writing a detective novel. I discarded it because at this point I've discarded it and I've repurposed the characters from it elsewhere. But
Mm-hmm.
that's actually something I actually like to do a lot. Like for stuff that I end up discarding, I'll take up the characters and I'll put them into something else I'm writing, if I like
Mm-hmm.
them. Uh, so it was a detective novel. I had a journalist and a detective, and they were basically teaming up to solve cases. Well, basically the concept was the detective is just bored. Was just bored with life, and the journalist was just tagging along and annoying him into solving cases. So she could write a book, right? So I mean, I ended up discarding it because I didn't think it was good enough. But like, for, but like for those first few days where I did work on it, like I pumped out like 2 or 3 chapters in just one day.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Because
Nice.
it just felt like it was all coming out from nowhere. Like it wasn't like my writing skills weren't quite as developed then, so it wasn't quite as good as it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
But like it just in that moment, it was just like, it was yeah, it was like I was in the zone. Like everything was
Yeah.
just coming together and it was working out. And, you know, I guess it worked out in the end because I got a decent couple characters out of it that I'm going to use later down the line in my novel series that I'm working on right now.
Yeah. It definitely worked out. That sounds awesome. Like something just came over you and you just had to
Yeah,
keep writing. It
because
sounds so cool.
I because I feel like with creativity, like even if you discard the project you work on, you can still take something from it. Like even if
Yeah,
it's
always.
like if it's a painting, like some of the colors maybe you didn't quite get the composition right, but the color scheme is good.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
if, or if you're maybe programming something, maybe everything didn't work out, but some of the ideas and concepts you can still take into your next project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, even when running, because like this, a couple like even a couple days ago when I was running, I realized like when I was on like the towards the end of the run, I realized I was like I haven't drank enough water today. So if I had drank like a little bit more water, I would have been able to like hit that goal. And then there were points before where I was like, if I just slowed down my pace a little bit more at the beginning, then I wouldn't be struggling so hard right now. So in everything that you do, you can and I think yeah, learning from it is something that's super important as well when you do something and it because it's not necessarily a failure. That view of failure. I feel like we've talked about it before on here, where
Yeah.
you have that view of befriending your failure and thinking of it as a step along your journey and being excited because that's now you know one more thing not to do and therefore you're one step closer to success. So I think that's super important, especially when you're discarding projects and stuff like that. And that might be why we get into a zone even if we know that like this isn't going to be the best thing I've ever done, but I'm having a lot of fun doing it and I'm definitely going to gain something out of it, right? I think that's a pretty interesting concept.
Yeah.
But Ayman, when have you been in a zone and a state of flow?
Um, that's tough. Sometimes I'll feel that in more just like playing games with my friends. Like I'll
Yeah.
feel that in like a video game or like whatever. I think in my field of like photography and like video, the most flow I felt is either during like a photo shoot where I will nothing's really clicking. Like a lot of times I have general ideas of what I want to do and a general location and like maybe some shots here and there. But here sometimes I'll find some like little tiny random angle out of nowhere and I try it and I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love it and that's when like it all just clicks and I keep going and going and going.
Okay.
I had a photo shoot where I was shooting for like a prom, like a group of girls was going to prom, and I was shooting for
Yeah.
them at a hotel. Um, and the hotel itself was like it was okay, like it's just like another hotel, like
Yeah.
it's not anything like special. There's like a chair we took pictures in, and like a hallway, like that kind of thing. But the shot that I really loved out of that entire shoot was this random. It was a mirror on the wall that had it kind of like protruded out a little bit. So like
Yeah.
there's like lines that went in and all of it was glass. It was like a part of it goes out like this and then there's like a flat part in the front.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost like a square with like slants on the side.
Yeah.
So I pointed my camera into the mirror and then it was like a tiny mirror. It was like maybe like like half a foot in length.
Mhm.
But I like pointed my camera into there and like at my subject's face, and there was like an effect where her face would appear in like different spaces. So
Huh.
it was like a fragmented kind of view, and I love that shot. So that was
Dang.
like one of my favorite things. And
Sounds like an
yeah,
abstract, like
it was interesting. Yeah,
different.
the only other time I could think is like when we shot the short film for MSA, and I'm
Oh,
sure that
that
like
was awesome.
that was it was really fun. I enjoyed it. It was extremely tiring. We had to wake up like every single day like 7, and then shoot like the entire day.
Yeah.
Um, along with like doing our like normal schoolwork at the same time. So like it was very difficult, but I'm sure like as we develop more ideas and do stuff that's not like MSA related, we'll probably get more into that flow. But that was really
Yeah.
fun. I enjoyed that a lot.
Definitely.
I mean,
Yeah, I
if you
loved
need
watching that video.
if you need a suggestion,
That
film a
will,
horror movie at college.
yeah.
Honestly, we tried to film a horror a long time ago, but it was just so bad. It was so bad. So like the premise of it was that we were like two vloggers walking around. There's like a little like creek area next to my house. So we were like two vloggers walking through the area, and we're like, oh my god, I heard there's like a banshee in this area. We should try to find it. It was like during the day,
Uh,
and we're like just walking around like
Okay.
filming that. And then by the end, like we come back at night, and we come back again, and we're like, okay, maybe it's here. And then I'm like walking along with Fawaz, and like he's supposed to like get like taken away by the banshee, and I'm like, what? Where'd he go? And like he chases me like back to the house, and then like I look out the window, I see something walking toward the house, and like and then I'm like, where do you go? And I turn around, he's like behind me, and like I yell, and like it ends. But
Did you complete it?
it was so bad. It was so bad. I
I
took
want
the
to see
entire
this.
first half of the footage and made it into like a vlog, and I just like,
Mhm.
and that was the first day of like our summer series of a vlog series I did with
Okay.
like my friends.
Oh,
Where
so you
like,
turned
Yeah.
it into something that
yeah,
was
I
better.
turned it.
Exactly.
I repurposed it into something better, like Umar did.
Nice.
Yeah.
Interesting. I've made a horror. So like this one time I was in Chicago with my friends and we wanted to like make this horror video. I don't know how we came up with the idea, but so we were recording and everything was like grayscale, right? And but it was a strange kind of effect where like it looked like the room was completely dark. Actually, I think we did turn the lights off. So it was just like somebody was on a piano like with like those like scary notes. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then like the video cuts to like a rocking horse, like one of those things like but for like a little kid, and then there's like a
Mhm.
lighter that goes off. I don't know what it was about it at the time, but it just looked so dope. Like it was the scariest thing, and like looking back at it, like it sounds stupid, but you have
Oh,
to see the
honestly,
video.
I think that sounds scarier than what I was doing. Like because it doesn't matter how good your idea is. I think horror is such a hard thing to pull off in like
Yeah,
in filming, because you just have to know like your angles and the atmosphere you're building. Most of it
Yeah.
is just the atmosphere you're building.
I think
And
horror.
if you're not doing that,
Yeah,
there's
I
no
think
point.
horror is like comedy is like comedy in a lot of ways. Like you have to build up for the payoff to actually work.
Yeah.
Like that's why
yeah.
I think that's why like a lot of you see a lot of like comedy directors going into horror, like Jordan Peele.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. Jordan Peele's a freaking genius,
He's a
man.
genius, man. I love him.
Because the
If
concept for horror and comedy are the same. Like you build up to that joke. Like even if it's a small
hmm
detail in the corner, it's building up, and then you get the payoff. Horror is the same way. Yeah, I mean, I've been playing a lot of horror games, so I've gotten a little better versed. But like,
yeah,
you know, jump scares are fine. Like the first time it's scary. After a while, it gets annoying because there's no build up. It comes out of nowhere, right? But when
yeah,
that horror is built up through like atmosphere and just growing tension, it becomes a lot scarier. Like footsteps don't sound scary normally, but if you know there's someone moving around and who's been chasing you for a couple hours and you don't know where those footsteps are, then that becomes creepy.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Definitely. I feel. I Do you guys think that like fear and laughter, like that, those two genres, does it like are they similar in the way, because I know that nervousness and excitement strangely enough come from the same part of your brain, right? So do you think it's like a relationship like that where the feeling is so similar when you're like laughing? Because I feel like there's a certain um, thrill to each of them, like when you like an unforgettable moment, when you're like laughing really hard and you're just like with your friends versus when you're like scared out of your pants. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like there's somewhat of like a similarity there. I just find that interesting. I don't
I,
know, maybe
I guess
maybe
that's
I'm
why
wrong.
some people start laughing when they're scared, like the nervous laughter,
Maybe
Yeah.
just because
Yeah.
it comes from a similar place.
maybe
I think a lot of it sometimes is maybe if you know you're not like in danger 100%, if you're at like a haunted house.
yeah,
Me and my friends went to the one in Fort Worth, I think.
yeah.
But when we were there, a lot of times we would just be like laughing, running around, just like kind of like running, like come on, go, go, go,
Yeah.
like because you're all just like pushing each other, like come on, go, 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 and then we're just like I'm just kind of like laughing at ourselves. 'Cause I'm sure we look so stupid, just like
Yeah.
running around from just people dressed up, like that kind of thing. I'm sure like obviously you're gonna laugh, but in a real situation, I don't think I would be laughing.
Yeah, definitely not. Maybe like to play it off cool, just be like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
because
it's
yeah, I'm not scared.
yeah, but in reality, you're like terrified. I
Yeah.
get that. All right. An interesting question that I have for you is what difficulties come with your passion, whether it's photography or anything else that you were working on, a creative project? Like, what difficulties have you had along the way, just in general, or trying to stick to it, and how did you get through that?
Um, I think a lot of issues that I think photographers and maybe anyone else who's like kind of doing something that they have to produce their own work, is that like there are different things that obviously like the creative aspects that come with it. Like there's like I said before, like you come up with the different project ideas and you want to keep working on them all the time. Like one issue I have is I will be in the middle of a project and then I will get an idea for another one and I'll want to start working on that because it's a new idea and it's really exciting. So I want to jump on that immediately, but I can't do that because I need to keep working on what I'm doing right now. But recently I've been kind of bad at that, and I'm starting like new project after the other, and I guess that keeps like the enjoyment of it fresh because I can switch back and forth between different projects and it's more enjoyable that way. But it's like, on the creative side of things, that's how that works. But the thing is, like a lot of times, this is generally like a business idea for people. Like I started doing this because I enjoyed it, but also I was like, okay, this would be a good way for me to like make a little bit of money as well on the side. Get a, like, so issues that I run into is I don't know how to price my work because like I know how much time I spend, I know how much effort I put in, I know how long it took me to develop these skills. I know how much I pay every month for like Adobe subscriptions and for my equipment and everything. Like it's all expensive as hell.
Yeah.
And like and then I just don't know like where, on top of that, I don't know where to value my work because there's like the literal effort and resources put in, and then there's also just like this is my personality and my style, and you're getting that. When you pay for my work, you're paying for that. Like this is my own take on photography, and if you're doing that, you're paying for me, like that's what you want. And I think I've gotten to a point where like I think people like my work, I think. And I have people who will like hit me up and be like, hey, I love to shoot with you, like I want to do this because they like my work or whatever. But just like whether it's a friend or it's like a random person, like it is hard for me to figure out like how I want to price things because obviously if for example if they are my friend, I do want to help them out and I want them. If I like I do want to shoot in a way that like they enjoy it and they have fun. They're like not like, oh, I have to pay him now and everything, like but I mean I'm also like this is how I make money. Like this is what I'm doing.
You have to make your money back for everything that you paid for.
So like I'm in a like a weird place where like obviously at first I would think like, okay, it's fine, they're my friend, I don't really care, like it's not a big deal. But then like I was a little influenced because I'm kind of a part of like Twitter photography Twitter, where like all the different photographers are on there. And like general creatives are on there a lot. Like I follow a lot of them on there. And I see a lot of them saying like that, like if you are gonna support your friend, then the best way to do it is like to pay for their work, because like that's what they do. And if you want to support them, don't just say I love your work, but then don't pay for it, because then like they're gonna feel like, oh, like you like my work, but you don't love it enough to like to pay my price for it. So like that's something that I struggle with. And then like there's a lot of like issues that go along with it. It's just a struggle. Like for example, I'm sure like a lot of other photographers have felt this, where like some like influencer will contact you like, hey, I love your work, let's collaborate. But like their meaning of collaborate is shoot for me and then for free, and then I get to post them, and like I get great pictures that I love, and I don't pay anything for them. Like, but generally, like if you're not bringing anything to the table besides you just being there, it's not a collaboration.
Then
if you bring like this is my idea, here are my props, this is like the location that I found, I did the research for this, and I want to work with you in a way that like we work on a project together, maybe like a series of different things, and like you bring something equal to the table, then it feels more like okay, I'm bringing this, you're bringing this, and we're doing it together.
Definitely.
So like it's just like I've experienced that before. People are like, oh, let's collaborate on a shoot, and their whole thing is like, oh, you get to use my follower base to like grow your thing, and generally like it doesn't really help. It doesn't do anything.
Not a lot of people look at like photo creds and like, oh, I should hit up this guy. You know?
Like maybe a fellow photographer will do that. I do that. If I see like some work and I like it, I'll be okay, who is this? I want to follow them and see more of their work. But if you're just someone who's trying to pay for photos and who wants that kind of thing, like you're not gonna like be like, oh, cool, I'm gonna look at them and then like then decide to pay like to work with them.
It's like people say, exposure doesn't pay the bills.
Like exposure won't put food in my stomach. Like I appreciate it, but it's not gonna like help me get more equipment or pay for my Adobe subscription every single month.
I saw this skit by this Irish comedy group, and this guy basically he gets a plumber to fix his pipe, and it keeps try to pay him an exposure just to show like how ridiculous it is to
Yeah, yeah,
pay artists
Yeah.
an exposure, because you wouldn't pay a
yeah,
plumber an exposure, right? You're just like, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna tweet like you
yeah,
would go to a plumber, have him fix your pipes, and be like, yeah, I'll send out a couple tweets for you.
yeah, exactly, yeah,
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 definitely. I think, and it's also interesting because, like, as much as like they love your work, right, and they're giving you that exposure, and you love to
hmm
do what you're doing,
yeah, exactly.
but it is work at the end of the
Yeah,
day,
I
you
am
know.
working. Yes, yes,
So
Like it might be
100%.
work that you enjoy, but it's still work.
Yeah.
exactly. So I think it's a interesting concept. Like, where do you think like the line is between like I'm having so much fun and loving what I'm doing, like I'm getting into a zone when I do it, versus you know, like this is a job for me and I have to make sure that I do it right, and like at times it feels like work. Is it just something that like at some points it feels like work and at some points it feels like you're really loving what you're doing, or does it feel like both at the same time most of the time? Like how do you guys think that works for you personally or in general?
Um. Well, in my field, generally, like I was mentioning earlier, where I don't want like people like I struggle with like pricing with my friends and also like with people contacting me for free shoots. Sometimes like I'm not saying like I won't do that kind of stuff sometimes. Like like I have like for example, I have a friend who loves Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
and I had an idea recently to do a Star Wars shoot, and it was my idea, and I thought of it. And I reached out to him because I know he loves that kind of thing. And I'm not going to charge him or anything because it's
Yeah.
my idea, and I want to do it. But I just think he would be the perfect person to do it with.
Yeah.
So there are those kind of things where like I have an idea and I have inspiration. I want to reach out to somebody and work with them. But like, um, that's kind of thing that like I think is more of like this is just for fun, and I enjoy this a lot.
Yeah.
And like there are those like creative shoots that I'll do for fun that are just very enjoyable. And usually people when they pay you, they don't always want that kind of thing. They just want photos of that memory or of like that event or that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that feel most like work to me are the ones where um it's just like me shooting an event where
Yeah.
like I'll show up and like it's like a birthday or like it's like a wedding anniversary or something like that. And I just have to like kind of sit there and just keep like
Yeah.
shooting things that I think are like worthy moments. Like, and the thing
Yeah.
is about that is like sometimes people will hire me for an entire event, like the entire time, and there's nothing happening at the moment. And I've like taken pictures of the same like 10 groups of guests over and over and
Yeah.
over again, and I don't know what else to do. So I just kind of sit there and I feel like I'm doing nothing. And
Yeah.
I hate that because I think like, oh, they're paying for me and I'm just sitting here. But also like I don't know what else to do because I've taken so many photos. I've taken like 500 photos of the same 10
Yeah.
people, and I don't want to keep doing that.
Yeah, that definitely sounds a lot more like work, especially because
Yeah.
even at like an hourly wage job, sometimes you just have nothing to do, and you
Yeah,
feel like,
exactly.
is this okay? When you start working
hmm
there, though, like after a while, you're just like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is what they pay me to do, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me the difference between creative passion and work, like if I'm writing an article for like a magazine or something, like the difference is like the difference pretty much for me is just who I'm doing it for. Because if I'm doing it for
Yeah.
me, it feels like I'm doing something creative and like something I'm passionate towards. But like if I'm
Hmm.
doing it, uh, if I'm doing it for someone else, like I'm like it with like myself not in mind at all, then it's when it starts to feel like work. Like I enjoy like writing like short stories for like magazines and stuff like that. I also admit
Yeah.
them there, but
hmm
it does feel like work because I'm doing it for them. I have to stick with their restrictions. I have to
Yeah.
get it
Yeah.
under that word. I have to get it under that word count. Like the youth magazine. I don't, as of recording, the July issue hasn't come out yet, but like I wrote a short story for it, right? For a Mustard Youth magazine, and I had to cut it into a third of what it was before because they had
Yeah.
they had a word limit.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also, or mainly even for me, the difference between like my own idea versus something that I'm like, the moment you're told to do something, you don't want to
Yeah.
do it, right? So it's like when your
Mhm.
parents tell you to, like, I'm about to clean my room, my parents tell me to clean my room, then I don't want to do it. But when it was my own idea, it seemed great, like, yeah, I'm putting my
Yeah.
clothes in the closet, I'm jamming to whatever music I put on
Yeah.
in my head, like when it's my idea and then my parents tell me to do it, and I'm like, oh, you really want me to go all the way over there, pick up my clothes and put them in the closet? Like, what a terrible idea,
I think the reasoning for that is like that you feel like it's something that you've done yourself. It feels like a self-starting
Yeah.
like task where like you're like, oh, I had this idea, I'm gonna go through with it, and then
Yeah.
you finish. You're like, okay, I feel good about this now.
Yeah, because
Whether
it's
like
always
your
the
parents give you
story.
something to do, and you're like, oh, this feels like a meaningless task, and
Yeah.
now I have to go out of my way of like what I'm currently like set on, and I have to like move it to this other meaningless thing, and then go do that. It's an important thing for you to do,
Exactly.
but like you just feel like, oh, this is stupid, I don't want to do it, and then you just go do it, and eventually you're like, okay, whatever, and then you go back to like what you were originally doing, and you've kind of like maybe lost your flow, or you're like
Yeah.
your train of thought, and now you have to like get back into like things and start over again.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lot
Whether
more.
like
It's
this
a lot more.
thing that you come up with yourself
It's a lot
is
more
part of your own flow.
enjoyable when you're playing by your own rules.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, you
like,
kind of create the world that you live in, and it feels,
Mhm.
because that's like the dope story that everyone has. Like, I had this idea one night, like it just came to me, and like, imagine being able to tell people that, and just that feeling of like, I came up with this. This is my idea. This is my work, and you just feel so good about it because you own it, and
Mhm.
it's something that's special to you, right? And that's when you start getting into that zone and that flow.
yeah, because if you're playing by your own rules, you're doing your own thing. You don't feel you feel like you can do anything. You can, but like if someone tells you like only 500 words or less, or like you can only shoot Dutch angles, it's limiting. And why would you only let me shoot Dutch angles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. Well, one last thing, I guess, Iman, that we like to ask everyone. What are you? You can't say photography. What are you an absolute nerd about?
Oh. I'm gonna say video games because
Okay.
I think like just generally that's something that I can always come back to, and like
Mm-hmm.
often like when I find myself procrastinating like my current work, I will go to some kind of video game,
Yeah.
because like, and it's not even like I play them all the time by myself. I'll generally use them to like talk to my friends. Like I'll use them in a
Yeah.
way to um, catch up with them, like, oh, what's going on, and it's a way like for us to like be competitive and
Mm-hmm.
enjoy our time together and still do all that. And most of the time it's generally fun because we play kind of often, so like we'll
Mm-hmm.
end up doing well. So
Yeah.
it's just an enjoyable thing. Like I kind of get into the flow. Like I was saying earlier, like I get into the
Yeah.
flow with some video games sometimes just because it's so enjoyable.
Yeah.
I guess a more reasonable answer would be technology in general.
Yeah.
Like I just enjoy. That's kind of why I'm a computer science major, because I
Okay.
do enjoy coding. Like I love it.
Mm-hmm.
The problem solving is great, and like seeing new technologies and being able to use them within my own work is great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Learning about like just even like learning about like, oh, there's this new thing coming out, like it's gonna be like revolutionary for this purpose and this purpose. I'm like, oh my god, that's gonna be so cool. Like what are they
Yeah.
gonna do with that? What are people gonna work with that? Like maybe I could come up with something that like will benefit the people with this kind of work,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing is really interesting to me.
Yeah, that's really dope. And going back to like the video game example, it's just, I think it's appealing to us because you get to get lost in a different world, you know?
Yeah.
And especially like the best kinds of video games are the ones where, like we were talking about earlier, like you can have your own idea and just, like follow it, the open world, adventurous video games. Omar, I know you love Breath of the Wild because it's so adventurous. I love The Witcher 3 just because you can do like whatever you want. Like if I could go fight this monster, or I could play Gwent, and I often choose the latter.
I think that was a thing. You showed me your
Yeah.
whole thing, and you're just like, yeah, I have like 100 hours just playing this card game.
Yeah,
I was
I
like,
just
what?
play Gwent.
I don't get that personally. Like
I
I don't play when I play open world games, like I will enjoy the side quests and that kind of thing, but
Yeah.
I'm generally more moved by the story, and that's
Mhm.
just me.
I think
Yeah.
And
video
like
games are a unique medium in the sense that they involve you in a way that no
yeah,
other medium does.
yeah,
Mhm.
Like on top of it being really a mixed medium, because you have elements of drawing, sound design, music, even dance in some games, all
Yeah.
mixed into
Mm-hmm.
one, right? But like video games have that unique pull to them that you can get involved in that story. Like
Yeah.
you're the one saving. You're not
Yeah.
watching someone else
Yeah.
save the princess.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're the one who
It's
defeated Ganon. You're the one who stomped on Bowser's head. You
Yeah,
know.
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool. And I've often heard that like video games aren't just like something that you play. It's a whole experience that you're going through. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's so cool because I mean, as much as we're like advancing in technology now and you can create experiences at like amusement parks and stuff like that, like
Mm-hmm.
there's a unique feel to being able to do something on your own in a video game. Like, and that's why VR is so cool right now as well because
Yeah.
I know you have a VR headset, I'm in, and I want one so bad, and they like it's just so cool that you can be literally be there at that point.
Yeah,
um
that's really cool.
And
it's interesting.
but I think one of the other fun things about video games is that you can feel like you can be there, even if you don't have that sense of immersion that VR gives you. Like even like 8-bit games from 30 years ago,
Yeah,
you can
100%.
Yeah,
you
I
can
agree.
play
I
that.
agree.
You can play like the original Final Fantasy, and you feel like you're
hmm
part of this little party.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're defeating all these dragons and elves.
Yeah, I feel like that GameCube era was where that really got started because like the Zelda games, I love Zelda games and the fact that like you really feel like you're Link going on this adventure, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like yeah, Nintendo does that very well where they create
Yeah.
open world games and you feel like you're going on an adventure, like especially recently like Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, and they also have some like I guess the games that you're more into, I mean, it seems like is like shooter games where you either drop in battle royale or it's like a 5v5 or whatever it is, but that
Mm-hmm.
also feels like it's also an experience that you're going through yourself because you never know what's going to happen that round. And
Yeah.
so and you also have the freedom to do a lot of different things, especially in
Mm-hmm.
games like Valorant and Warzone. You can create challenges for yourself, like you guys
Mm-hmm.
are trying to win a game from every single spot,
Oh yeah.
like while dropping
Yeah.
on every single spot. Like you can do
Yeah.
that with these games. You have that freedom. It's your own idea, and that
Mm-hmm.
just feels so interesting and so cool. So that's another unique aspect to video games is you can just have your own ideas and do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
And that's what we love to do.
All
I
right.
think
All
they
right.
also just kind of give you like more of a like a personal experience. Like for me, I don't ever feel as connected with like movies as much. Even though like I sometimes I will. If a movie's really really good, I will like feel connected. But
Yeah.
with like shows and games, it feels a lot better because you take a lot of time to get used to these characters and get connected with them, and it's like, over like the period of hours and hours on end. Because most games are maybe like what, like 12 hours.
Yeah.
So that's a lot more
Like,
time than a movie to like get acquainted with these
definitely.
things.
Yeah.
And even like I don't get scared as much by horror movies, but horror games will freak me out, and
Yeah.
I will get scared because I'm moving through the world and I'm experiencing like
Yeah.
it's like you said, Omar, like it's like you're there. It feels like you're
Yeah.
there, and like the horror movie, like I'm just kind of watching it and I kind of
Yeah.
can see
Yeah,
what's
because
about to
you're
happen.
watching this stuff happen to someone else, but like if you're playing something
Mhm.
like Resident Evil 7, you're the one that was
Mhm.
walking through that household,
Yeah.
looking through
Yeah.
looking around every
Yeah.
corner and just being like, what the
That's the
heck
thing.
is
And
behind
it's
that?
your
And
life
if
on
you
the line.
and if you just stop and you don't do anything, like the story won't advance. You have to keep going. Otherwise like you just sit there and you're just kind of doing nothing. Like
Exactly.
a movie, you can be scared and just like stop and like freeze up and you just and like the movie will keep going.
Yeah.
But with a game, like if you once
it
you
goes at your
stop,
pace.
it's gonna freeze. Yeah, and you have to push yourself to be okay. I have to pick up the
Yeah.
controller again and keep moving, and then know something's gonna happen to me again.
Yeah, it's a journey that you have to put yourself through, and
Mhm.
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy this conversation quite a bit. I do believe that's all the time that we have.
Yeah.
S-
But one more thing before we go, just some parting words from Iman, just giving some advice to people who just might have at some point, gotten into a creative rut. Just give a final word of advice to them.
Um. Okay. The biggest thing that I would say is that I find a lot of times people will limit themselves to what equipment they own, and that comes with either like editing something or filming a project or photography or even just basic arts like your drawing and that kind of thing. And I found that in my experience that just starting the project, no matter what you currently have, is the best way to go about it. And you'll find that you'll be a lot more surprised with what you can do with what you have, and putting that project off, waiting for that equipment, you'll realize like, okay, I don't have this thing now, I don't have this thing, and you'll keep pushing it off until you just never do
Yeah.
it. And for me, I eventually pushed myself to work on, like, whether it was us starting YouTube all those years ago, or us just saying, okay, you know what, let's do a short film. We need to do something.
Yeah.
Eventually, like, you will realize maybe your first project won't be that great, but like at the end of the day, like, you'll realize what equipment you actually need and what is just kind of gimmicky. And on top of that, it'll push you to be the best that you can be. And I just just do that first project. Just do it. No matter what you got, just push. Even if you have an iPhone and you're trying to make a short film, just do it. I promise you, it will be better than you think it will be.
Yeah, just get started and see where it takes you.
All right.
100%.
Well, thank you so much
Good
for
advice.
speaking with us today.
Yeah,
Ayman.
thank you, guys.
And well, everyone, we'll see you again next week. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at acupofcoffeepod, or email us at acupofcoffeepod@gmail.com. Send us an email, a tweet, a DM if you're interested in being on the podcast, or just have some questions. And be sure to share it with all your friends. See you guys next week.